Tension is high in the Republic of Congo before Sunday's referendum on changes to the constitution. Veteran President Denis Sassou Nguesso is seeking a third term. The opposition say it's a constitutional coup. So what's driving many African heads of state to avoid retirement, and what are the implications for their people? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Hazem Sika. House arrest and power cuts, weapons which opposition activists in the Republic of Congo accused the president of using before Sunday's referendum on changes to the constitution. A yes vote will allow 72-year-old President Denis Sassou Nguesso to run for a third term. Opposition activists fear the vote will be rigged in his favor. Police placed the main opposition leader under house arrest on Friday. Earlier in the week, internet services were switched off before a main opposition march. Our correspondent Haru Mutasa sets up the story for us from the capital, Brazzaville.
There's a tense atmosphere in the capital, Brazzaville. Police tried to clean up streets and remove barricades left behind from anti-government protests. The capital seems quieter than usual. Some have left the city ahead of Sunday's referendum. There's a heavy security presence in some opposition strongholds.
They can shoot and we will die, see? And so I got fear. But I want to restore peace. And the government is there to secure people.
The police come and shoot us and throw grenades. The people are oppressed. We need to find a solution to this problem.
The opposition is protesting changes to the constitution. It has an age limit and says a president cannot run for a third term. President Sassou Nguesso is 72 years old and has already served 2 7-year terms. Government officials say the president has so far said nothing about trying to stay in power.
He doesn't speak about this thing. I think it will be a subject perhaps in a few months. We are not in an election for presidency. It will come perhaps in May or June of 2016. Not yet. Yet it's for the constitution of a country.
More protests are feared before Sunday's referendum. Some government buildings have been destroyed. This was a police station. Opposition leaders say they are not giving up. Government officials insist the referendum will go ahead on Sunday. The presidential election is due to be held in July next year. Government officials say the proposed changes to the constitution will ultimately benefit the poor and strengthen people's rights. But many in the opposition don't believe them. Haru Mutasa, Al Jazeera, Brazzaville.
Well, let's talk now to Thierry Mungala. He is the Congolese information minister who you saw there in Haru Mutasa's report, and he joins us now from Brazzaville. Thank you for being with us. So I want to ask you, first of all, about this referendum. There are a lot of criticisms of it, not least the fact that we're talking about a 72-year-old leader who served for 2 terms now. But one of the problems that many people in the Republic of Congo have with it as well is that the vote itself, they don't believe will be credible. What assurances can you give that it will be?
Thank you for inviting me in your channel. I think that the election day, which is tomorrow, will be very quiet because all people in Congo doesn't want violence or war, because for us, the thing is that politics made violence and war in the 90s, and all Congolese people doesn't want anyway a new war or new violence in our country. For us, opposition for last week wanted to cause the disorder in suburban areas of Brazzaville and Pointe-Noire, but they failed to do it. And I think that we are going forward to a new republic in our country. If people say yes tomorrow for the referendum.
Well, you talk about what you say is the opposition stirring up unrest, but on Wednesday it was reported that police arrested and briefly detained 18 opposition activists who were attempting to simply hold a press conference in the Diata neighborhood of the capital. Can you tell us why they were arrested and detained when all they were doing was trying to hold a press conference?
No, there is no arrestation. All of people were with the justice, the procureur de la République, not the police. They were with the politicians were with bombs in their hands. They were with bombs, and the justice said to them, "It's not good to have bombs in your hand." Second thing, it was not a peaceful thing on last Tuesday. They wanted to go to the presidency, and they wanted to put the president of a country out of the presidency. It was not a democratic manifestation. It was they wanted to put the president out of the power.
The opposition.
It was not a passive one.
The opposition, for their part, have said that they want to conduct a campaign of civil disobedience, of peaceful protest, and you have army forces and the orders of the president surrounding the home of the main opposition leader. Can you tell us what the reason is for that?
I don't know if they are in their house with army around their homes. I don't know what. I don't know why, and I don't know if it's true. I know that most of opposition leaders wanted to do violence because they said for them on Tuesday they wanted to put the president out of the power. It was a speech. They made a lot of speech like it, and police and the state, all the states, will do all to respect and to let the people respect the law in the country. It's illegal. It's not a good thing to say that you wanted to take power by illegal movements or illegal manifestations.
Why do you say it's illegal? On what basis are you saying they're trying to do it illegally?
But because they said that before this week, they said on 20th of October we will put the president out of power. Presidential term is on next July, next August, not yet. It was illegal to say that they wanted to put the president out of power on October of 2015.
Good to speak with you, Thierry Mungala, the Congolese information minister, joining us there on the line from Brazzaville. Thank you for being with us. Well, let's speak now to our two main guests. In Pretoria, we have Matlotleng Matlu, Executive Director of Excelsior Africa Consulting. And joining us in Berlin, Lucas Olo, Regional Director for Central Africa at Transparency International. Welcome to both of you. Matlotleng Matlu, if I could start with you. What do you think is happening here in the Republic of Congo? And do you think this referendum is the right way forward, the way it's set up right now?
I think that the problem here is the development of constitutions and then amending them to suit individuals or parties or interest groups. The Congolese constitution clearly indicates an age limit of 70 and 2 terms for the president. And in this particular case, the president is 72 years old. He has had 2 terms. He's been in power since 79, except the break between 1992 and 1997. So it's really a challenge. I mean, there are other parts of the African continent as well where presidents have served for long periods. He has contemporaries in Angola and Equatorial Guinea, and then, of course, other countries. So it really presents problems, and especially in Central Africa, where countries like Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, and the DR Congo are following the same line. The heads of states in West Africa and ECOWAS in May debated the issue of two-term limits, and Gambia and Togo were vociferous in objecting to this. So it presents a challenge on the African continent and constitutional rule, and the AU has not been able to deal with this challenge. During its meeting, the AU summit in June in South Africa, President Mugabe, who was the chairperson at that time, spoke of term limits, but he himself has been in power since 1980.
Lucas Olo Fernandez, where does the Republic of Congo rank in transparency and standard of governance then? Just how would you rate it as a country?
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, I mean, Transparency International, its corruption perception index ranks Congo Brazzaville in the 152nd place out of 175 countries. So, according to us, the will to amend the constitution to extend the terms of in power is maybe a reflection of the failure of the system of governance in the country, and it's sad, but we cannot change the rules while in power when we have a population in general in Africa. Most of the population are under 35. Which is a very young population, and it's not understandable that people want to stay in power so long. And the examples mentioned earlier about Central Africa speaking for themselves, where we have countries or presidents that are staying in power for such a long time, and yet when there's a moment where there's the need for a change, even if it's a slight change in the person, because maybe we may not have bigger changes in terms of the government itself, but even if that slight change is avoided, then there's no way things can improve in this line.
Well, we're going to broaden this out a little bit now because West African leaders met in May to discuss a possible ban on third terms, but they decided against the proposal, allowing African leaders to continue ruling their countries for decades on. All of these countries have leaders who have been in power for at least 15 years. Togo will likely join that list since its president, Faure Gnassingbé, won a third term this April. He's meant to be in power until 2020. Same with Burundi's President Pierre Nkurunziza, who successfully changed the constitution and won a third term in July. Typically with these cases, attempts to cling to power led to mass protests and deadly violence. More than 24,000 people fled Burundi in the chaos surrounding the president's controversial campaign. In contrast, 2 million Rwandans have petitioned Parliament to allow President Paul Kagame to run for a third term in 2017. Some African countries, such as Gambia, Djibouti, and Chad, don't have term limits. So, Lucas Olo, if I could turn back to you then, there does seem to be a pattern here among African leaders about, in terms of wanting to stay longer than was originally intended. Why do you think that is?
First of all, we have to say that, I mean, the problem is not about the terms, the limiting the terms of staying in power. That's actually not an issue. There are countries where there's no term limits for being in power, and people can still rule the country. The problem is that there is no, we cannot see that things are looking brighter in the way they are going now. So if someone has been in power for more than 20 years and yet you want to still change the constitution, and those same countries are ranked in not even Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, but in other ranks. The Mo Ibrahim Index came out recently, where it comes with the same results, where governance is a big problem in these countries. So the term limit itself will not change much, but the fact that you're changing the term limits or you want to extend the term limits where you are a president that has been in power for more than 20 years, it's almost outrageous if we think about it.
Matlotleng Matlu, there is a fear that a yes vote in this referendum could provoke further unrest in the Republic of Congo. Is that a legitimate fear, do you think?
Well, I mean, we saw that earlier in Burundi, and we've seen it in various other countries where opposition, leaders are arrested, the media is biased in terms of coverage for the incumbent. So this creates problems. And let me just go back to the issue around term limits, because I think it's important. It can't be said that some countries don't have term limits and therefore it is not important. And somebody might say, well, look, if you look in Europe, Merkel has been in power for a number of terms. But what is important is the institutionalization of democracy and good governance in those countries. So that sometimes, even if it's the same party that comes to power, the people have votes, and they are able to bring about change, if not at the prime ministerial or chancellor level, certainly at state level, looking across the country, the court systems and the judiciary works, and rulers are held to account. In the African case, for example, if you say that term limits don't matter, in Togo, before Faure Yasingbe, his father had been in power, since the 60s. So it's going on, extending 48 years of rule. We look at Gabon, same process. In Senegal, there was an attempt to follow the same process in Egypt as well. So I think term limits have a reason. And granted, yes, some countries don't have term limits. And when you look at them on the very indexes we are talking about, they're not doing very well. There's already been violence prior to the referendum tomorrow. There had been a civil war in the past in Congo Brazzaville. So these are important indicators for us to look back at. And in the case in Rwanda, we must remember that there had been a conflict, civil war in the 1990s, and what happened then. The Central African region in itself, it's a very destabilized region. There are conflicts in various countries in the region. And, we saw what happened in Burundi. Neighboring countries have to bear refugees. And in the case of Burundian refugees, since the 1950s in some countries like Tanzania. So when we talk about term limits in this particular case, you have a constitution. Changing it for individuals then really cannot be good governance. And Congo Brazzaville is number 42 on the Mo Ibrahim index, below the average for Africa, and a country with about 6 million people, but the distribution and inequality in terms of wealth are a challenge. And we've got to look at these matters and say, what is happening with the wealth of the country? Is there openness? In terms of the Mo Ibrahim index, it looks at safety and security, participation and human rights, sustainable economic opportunities, and welfare. And in most of these, Congo Brazzaville is ranking in the upper 30s.
All right.
And therefore, it's not surprising that in the Transparency Index, it's doing number 155 out of about 170 countries.
French President Francois Hollande also spoke up about the referendum, and he said that President Sassou can consult his people. It is part of his right to, and the people must respond. So just coming back to you, Matt Lotling, is the French president is essentially giving tacit support to the government there, and this coming from a former colonial master?
Look, indeed, I think the history of the French in Africa, post-colonial and post-colonial, is a sordid one. And we know that in many countries they supported dictators who remained in power. In certain circumstances, Sarkozy, amongst others, was bankrolled in terms of his elections by some African leaders. So I will not take credence to what the French president is saying. I think that we cannot have a situation in which, former imperialist countries and colonialist countries tell Africa in one vein, this is what you need to do in terms of governance. In the other vein, then support regimes which want to change constitution. Certainly, he would not say the same thing in France in terms of changing that constitution on the basis that you would have changing of a constitution for individuals. I think we as Africans must, say no to these kinds of interference and, support for non-democratic processes. And France in particular, I think we must stay out of Africa's business, because it has done so in many cases, and we have seen conflicts and destabilization in numerous countries where they've been involved through their military bases, amongst others, where they have propped up certain regimes, amongst them, for example, Compaoré in Burkina Faso.
Lucas, Lucas Olo, what's your view on this? Where do you think France figures into this discussion? Would it be interference, or can they be a force for good in this?
First of all, I should say that it was very, very unfortunate that President Hollande made those statements, because we as my colleague is saying, it's clearly a way that is not really helping the situation in Congo-Brazzaville, because those type of I wouldn't even call it interference as such, but at the end it becomes an interference with where you're kind of saying or admitting that the way things are happening are all right. The problem in Congo-Brazzaville is that there are not enough tools or measures to make sure that the referendum itself would be reliable, the results would be reliable. So we cannot even think of, okay, you're fine consulting your people, but you don't have a consensus to come up with a new referendum, a text that was known less than a week ago, and there is and is intended to specifically allow an individual to stay in power. So though you cannot then say that it's fine for someone to just consult the population, we think that's very, very wrong. And there's been rumors since like 2 or 3 years ago where people were worried about the fact that in Congo-Brazzaville the constitution would be changed. There is a say in my region. I'm from Equatorial Guinea, where they say that someone cannot hide behind the arrow, because you will be seen, because you are seen as the one who's throwing the arrow, and this process is ending up to allow an individual to stay in power, and that's unacceptable.
Well, I'm interested to know a little bit more about why you think this referendum would not be a credible one, Lucas Olo, because the president does enjoy a lot of support in the country, doesn't he? There was this demonstration over the weekend in which the numbers were quite larger than the opposition demonstration. So if there is a yes vote, why would that not be credible?
First of all, because we know also, apart from the demonstrations for those, we are not saying that the president doesn't have a support. We also see that there is a repression on whoever wants to speak out against it, and that's already something that is deterring the fact that the people that are trying to oppose the referendum at all. So we are in a campaign period. Imagine that in the campaign period people are not allowed to hold a press conference. We just heard it right a few minutes ago. That's not a fair game to play when you have this kind of situation. Some radios are not aired in the country. The internet connection is cut. Things like that just show the fact that the will to change the constitution, or all this path that the government or the president is taking, is not in good faith. That I would say is more to hold his own interest.
All right, on that we are going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much to both of you, Matlot Leng Matlu in Pretoria and Lucas Olo in Berlin. Thanks for being on Inside Story. And thank you for watching. Of course, as always, you can leave your comments to us on the program's page of our website, aljazeera.com. And you can post your views to us on Facebook. We're on facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. Or you can tweet us at AJ Inside Story is the handle. Thanks for watching. From me, Hazem Sika, and all the team here. Bye for now.